2 weeks ago on our civil rights trip to Montgomery, Alabama, we were standing at the exact spot where Rosa Parks was arrested, and I was struck by, even though I'm sure it didn't feel like this at the time, how Rosa Parks was in the exact right place at the exact right time. On December 1st, 1955, when she refused to give up her seat on that bus, she couldn't have known fully how her act of courage would ignite a movement and transform a nation. Yet somehow she was prepared for that moment. Through her work with the NAACP, through her training at the Highlander Folk School, and through her personal conviction that she had been building for years and years before. Rosa Parks was born for that specific time. She was born for that specific bus, that specific seat. Though she couldn't see the full implications of her choice, when the moment arrived, her choice to act enabled and became her destiny. And so too for Esther, whose heroism and decisive action we celebrate on today's holiday of Purim. Esther, a Jewish orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, she abruptly becomes queen of Shushan of Persia. And when Haman, let's try that again. When Haman, very good. When Haman's plot to destroy the Jewish people emerges, Mordecai, what a guy. Mordecai sends Esther. Yes, queen. Mordecai sends Esther, who is suddenly in a position to change history. Mordecai sends her these immortal words, Umi yodea im le'et kazot higa'at. Who knows if you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Like Rosa Parks, Esther was willing to risk her own welfare to aid her people. Though approaching the king uninvited could mean her death, she embraced her purpose with the words, though it is contrary to the law, I shall go to the king, and if I am to perish, I shall perish. And as we all know, her courage saved our people from annihilation. And the thing about the book of Esther that is unique is that it is the only book in the entire Hebrew Bible in which God's name never appears explicitly in the text, not even once. But does that mean that God is absent from the story? Was divine providence throughout the narrative, was divine providence absent from the narrative? In the timing of Esther becoming queen, in Mordecai overhearing the plot against the king, in the king's insomnia that led him to remember Mordecai's loyalty. Was God present or not? Without Esther's choices, without human action, God would have, we know, remained completely absent from the story. And is that so different from our own day? Does God act directly in the world? When there is suffering, war, famine, are those acts of God? We often, as humans, attribute grand history or even minute victories to God. Like when people pray before the Super Bowl. Do they really think that God is an Eagles fan? Maybe. But where does God's mighty hand and God's outstretched arm end and our free will begin? Is God in control of our destiny? These are questions that our people have wrestled with for thousands of years. And this week in our Torah portion, Ki Tisa, Moses asks himself to see God's glory. And the response God gives is telling. God says, you cannot see my face, for no one can see me and live. I will put you in a cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. And then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. Even Moses, who spoke to God according to the Torah face to face as one speaks to a friend, could only glimpse the back of divine glory. Even for Moses, the fullness of God and God's plans remained concealed from view, and so too for us. But like for Esther, perhaps it is up to us at certain times and in certain places to bring godliness to a world devoid of it. Divine providence may be hidden, but it becomes visible through action. Rosa Parks made visible the injustice of segregation through her refusal to be treated as less than her fellow man. Esther made visible God's care for the Jewish people through her courage. And each of them in their own way was born la'et kazot, for such a time as this. Each stepped forward to fulfill a purpose uniquely theirs. So I ask, what about us? For what shlichut, for what unique purpose were we placed on this earth? Who knows if that phone call you made to check on a friend wasn't exactly what they needed to keep going? Who knows if the meal that you prepared for a grieving neighbor wasn't one moment of comfort in their very darkest day? Who knows if the encouraging word you gave a struggling colleague wasn't what prevented them from giving up on their dream? And who knows if the stand you took in that difficult meeting, speaking up for what is right when others stayed silent, wasn't what prevented an injustice? Like Esther in the Persian palace, we may be exactly where we need to be to make a difference. Like Moses in the cleft of the rock, you may catch glimpses of divine purpose working through your life. Now, you and I, we may not be placed in a moment that will be recorded in the annals of history or told in a museum bearing our name. Yet we should live each moment as if it is filled with potential to match our gifts with the needs of the world and the courage to step forward when the moment comes. What unique contribution may I make in this time, in this place? What unique injustice might I address? What kindness might I offer? What healing may I bring that no one else can in quite the same way? For in truth, divine providence continues to work through human hands. The face of God may remain hidden, but through our acts of justice, compassion, and courage, we make visible the godliness in our world. And who knows, perhaps you were born for just such a time as this. Shabbat Shalom.